Hey traders, Akil Stokes here. Welcome back to another episode of the Trading Coach Podcast. Today I have a very special episode for you, and it's going to be an interview of my real estate investment partner, John Bomberger. Now I'll tell you what, John has one of the most inspirational stories of entrepreneurship that I've ever heard, and you guys have the luxury of hearing that today. Not only are you going to hear about the sacrifices that John made and kind of the reason why he's on the path that he's on today, but we're also going to talk a lot about the mindset, what it takes to be an entrepreneur, and really, do you have the traits or don't you? So it's going to be a heck of a listen. Make sure you put aside about 30 minutes for it. And of course, before we get started, do me a favor, hit that like button, share this across social media, especially if you have any fans or friends that are into real estate investing, into trading, into entrepreneurship, really just into having a positive mindset. And at the very end, I'm going to ask you guys to ask us a few questions that you may have about real estate investing or just real estate in general. That way we can bring John on to the show and have him answer those. I want to put that bug into your ear right now, just in case you're the type that likes to jot notes down during your listen. So I hope you guys enjoy. And without further ado, let's hop into the interview. And I want to bring John in for a few reasons. We'll probably do a follow-up podcast talking more about real estate and getting into some of those topics. But I wanted John to share his story with you guys today because I think he has a terrific story. John is an entrepreneur. He may not call himself that, but he is. And very similar to myself, he was someone that just took a leap of faith and went for it, took risk. And it's paying off right now. You know, by no means is he at the end of his journey, obviously, but it's a great example of kind of setting yourself up for success. And again, if you're new to the podcast, John is also we're also partners in a real estate investment company. So before we get started about your path to becoming where you're at now, if you want to just tell the traders or tell our listeners, who exactly are you and what do you do and why are you so important that you were invited to come on this podcast?
Well, I don't know how important I am, but no, we've talked about this idea for a while, so I'm glad to be in front of you doing this little interview for your podcast and talking to some of your listeners, which is cool, which I am also a listener and a fan. Got a lot of good content. Some of the trading stuff kind of goes over my head, but I pretend to understand.
Goes over my head too, man.
But yeah, man, I'm just a regular guy. You know, I don't know, we met at Millersville, actually. I think we just met through your wife.
Yeah, I think it was,
afterwards.
We met, I was either in my last year at Millersville.
I was already out, probably.
Yeah, and yeah, my wife is friends with your wife, and you guys held some type of party or something that you always do.
Probably,
we
yeah.
Came over, and yeah, that was back when you had, what, 2 kids?
So, you know, without getting into my background too much, I guess college is where I'll start. I did go to Millersville and met my wife there. And we started our family pretty young. I dropped out of college for a while. Actually, my senior year, I was in my last semester at Millersville. And we already had one with Nicole, and then we were pregnant with Jonathan. And I said, I'm not making any money to support a family going to classes. Matter of fact, I'm going backwards. So I dropped out of school to work. I did eventually go back and finish my degree. But I just started hustling, and one of the jobs I had was in a clothing store as a retailer, and that for some reason stuck. I got good at it for some reason, and moved up from part-time Joe Schmo guy to assistant manager to manager, and kind of eventually became a career for more than a decade for me. But throughout that process of growing in different management positions, I took a lot of management courses, management training seminars, ad nauseum. But and I'm sure you've probably talked about this in some of your podcasts. And I think there's a little bit of where it's innate. So you either got it or you don't. You know, some of it can be developed, but you called me an entrepreneur. I probably wouldn't call myself that, but it's a mindset.
Yeah.
Right?
And I'll tell you what, I'll stop you there because I struggled to do the same thing. And so I believe, I agree 100% where it's like, I think too many people these days are quick to just like label themselves entrepreneurs just because it brings them, I don't know, it looks good, it sounds good, it brings them social media fame.
Right.
Where I think we agree where it's like you don't really need a label to be an entrepreneur. It's more of like, are you doing it? What's the mindset you want to have of, do you want to build something for yourself?
Right.
Or do you want to, work for someone else or in that capacity?
And we're in an interesting time right now, I think, generally in the economy, and definitely with that buzzword millennials, younger people, that entrepreneurism, being an entrepreneur is, I made up a word, I think.
You got me, man.
It's really popular. Like it's like cool to be an entrepreneur, and there's a lot of people out there that want to be that people model because you see them a lot on social media. I'm a huge fan of, and I know you are too, of Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V. I think he's kind of, in some ways, spearheading that entrepreneurial movement, and he's got a ton of good stuff to say. If you guys out in podcast land aren't following Gary V, you're doing yourself a disservice. He's got a ton of great mindset stuff. Now, he deals with the social media world and building brands, not really my thing, but in terms of mindset, he's great. And he's another guy that would say, in some cases, you either have it or you don't. You can develop some skills and things like that, but the mindset is the key. So throughout my career, as I was building it and kind of getting into different levels of management, I realized that I tended to really take my responsibilities and whatever role I was in very, very seriously and very personally. So my mindset, especially when I got my first store, I remember then specifically, and I was probably 24 years old. I was young.
Now, is that in that industry? Is that very young to get your own store? At that
very
age,
young,
it seems like it.
Very young, especially in the men's clothing industry for some of the companies I worked with, because, mind you, the clientele, who's in there buying doctors, attorneys, government people, and then there's an issue, and they're like, I want to talk to the manager, and out strolls this 24-year-old kid, and they're like, oh. So part of that is I learned how to dress professionally as well, which is been a benefit to me throughout my entire life. Well, not my entire life, but since then. I didn't dress like that in college, I can assure you. If it was December and 22 degrees outside, I was in t-shirt and flip-flops and shorts. It didn't matter. That was my thing. Very rare to find me like that anymore. But anyhow, so I found that I started to, regardless of what the name of the company was on the front of the store, whatever the sign was hanging, I thought of it as mine. It's my store. The employees in that store were my people. The inventory was mine, even though it really wasn't. But that was my mindset. And so the decisions I made, the people I hired, the way that I approached clients and marketed the business, presented myself, stemmed from that mindset. And that's really an entrepreneurial mindset. This is mine. Zig Ziglar says, if it's going to be, it's up to me. That was my mindset, and it's kind of rare to find in employees. Most employees are kind of like, well, tell me what to do. Exactly. Or I want to do as little as possible and get paid for it.
Yep.
And I was probably the opposite, and I think you can relate to that, is I was a hard worker. I'd work 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week, certainly in holiday times. That was normal. And I was fine with it, I've learned since then to kind of temper that. There's got to be a balance there. I've got a family now, and just for the record, it's 5 kids.
well, it's 5 technically, but there's foreign exchange students, or not foreign exchange students.
There are foreign
exchange students. Yeah, that always are.
So we have our 4th foreign exchange student this year, so we'll make it 9.
See,
and we'll be grandparents pretty soon. So.
Well, just to let you know, the number is going to keep going up as the podcast is going up. It started with 5, true. And I just add 1 each and every time I mention it.
We have a counter going over here.
So you'll be, by the time all said and done, you'll be at 20 kids. So
okay.
Just accept that.
So anyway, I took it very seriously, and I really devoted myself to my work, albeit objectively, it's not like super important work. We're slinging suits and shirts and ties and shoes and making people feel good about the way they look, and wedding parties and all that kind of stuff. And then I remember, and one of the things you referenced when we were chatting about this earlier, I was up for a promotion to take over an area, which I eventually did get, which I was really excited about because I was really ambitious and wanted to continue growing in that industry, and whatever. So
because that gave you a whole different level of not freedom, but you can take what you're doing at your single store, absolutely. And just instead of just having this be my store, this be my region, and really grow it the way you wanted to, in a way that had worked very well. And
right.
I know that was a big moment for you. I remember us talking. You had the car, the Prius.
That's right.
Silent.
Yeah.
And you were traveling up and down, and it just gave. I remember you just being happy because it gave you flexibility in making your own schedule and not necessarily still grinding the same type of way, but in a kind of more at your leisure. Leisure is a horrible word because you're working hard, but you know what I'm saying.
But you're right on. You're right on. I think it was actually easier to be an area manager or district manager or regional, whatever you guys want to call it, than it was being in stores because of that flexibility. Because I could be in a Starbucks looking at numbers and calling my managers and beating them up, like the way my bosses used to beat me up and whatever. Not that that was really my style, but anyway, had that flexibility. But there was also some things that I didn't like. I remember one vacation. I think it might have been for an anniversary. It might have been in October. We went to visit some friends out in Phoenix, Arizona. It was supposed to be a 5-day trip. And we were moving a store at that time, right around the same time. So my boss was giving me a lot of pressure to be present for the move. And because we were totally redesigning and make it really pretty, and it's going to be a flagship store and all this kind of stuff. So I left that vacation early to come to this move and help out, and my boss wasn't even there.
Serious?
And I was like, I paid extra money to change my flight. I left early, and first of all, there wasn't a whole ton of me for me to do, and he never showed up. So that was one of the things I was kind of like, so you just took something from me for nothing.
Yeah.
For nothing. So that kind of scenarios like that. That's not the only example. If I thought more about it, I could give you plenty of other examples of times where I was like, man, I've got no control here over what's going on with my position, with my job, with my life, right? But it really hit home when the company, for no reason, at least I can't find a good reason. I'm sure they had their reasons. We decided to restructure. That's what they call it. We're going to restructure. And my boss was no longer going to be my boss. And he kind of cursorily explained to me the adjustment and the moves. What I got out of that conversation was that he wasn't going to be my boss anymore because he was moving to a different area. It was kind of unclear who my boss was going to be, what my role was going to be inside that area. So it was all just kind of like, I went home that day and I was like, okay, so I guess nothing really changes. I'll keep operating like normal. But the next day I don't really know where to go. All right, so now what? So within a couple of days, they were like, okay, we need you working in a store. And I'm like, you mean like permanently, or do you mean like just today? What's going on? And they were like, well, we're eliminating your position.
Ooh.
And I'm like, okay, but why? Let's talk about what happened.
How long was this after you got the promotion?
To that area, in that particular area, it was probably less than a year.
Yeah, so pretty quick,
long,
yeah.
Which was even more confusing because it was kind of like, well, I barely got a chance to do anything in this area. So that was the message, is like, we're eliminating the position. And they said all this stuff like, we're totally happy with your work. We love what you're doing. It's not your fault. It's like when you break up with a girl.
Before.
When you break up with a girl, it's not you, it's me. I was like, okay, but there's got to be a reason why I'm the one that's being affected by this, because what you're saying isn't good enough for me. Because if it's not my fault and you like what I'm doing, I should still be working in this position. And that just wasn't the case. So they put me back in the store as a store manager, cut my pay, took all the nice things that I had. Oh, you need to leave the company car in that parking lot. Somebody will pick it up. It was kind of like a shady backroom deal. So that whole thing went down. Not only that, they put me in a store that was at a distance from my home. It was like 30 or 40 miles from my home, which really ticked me off. Because I'm like, hold on a second. So you're happy with my work. It's not my fault, but you want to screw me here? Like, what is going on?
You're not back where you started. You're even worse.
Right.
Basically.
Exactly.
Well, let me ask you, so what was the first thing, emotion that went when you heard that? I know you said when you first heard, you're kind of like lost and like, okay, we just broke up, but are we still together? We're on a break, right? So it feels like that.
Yeah.
When they cut your pay, made you leave the car in this shady back alley, and moved you to a new store, was it frustration, anger, confusion? What kind
just a sense of
revenge?
This is not fair. Like, this is going down, and it's not even right. If I'm a talented young manager who's got a lot of upside for a company that's aging, right? I was in my late 20s, early 30s at this point. I'm somebody. If I'm the head of a company or senior management, I'm looking at somebody at that age. I'm not saying it because it's me, but this is the guy that has the future of the company.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
And
he can be in our company for the next 30 or 40 years.
Yeah,
why the hell wouldn't you want to keep him?
And you're really, obviously me and John have known each other for a while. John is someone that is very kind of forward thinking. He's not really focused on kind of doing things the way that they used to be done, the way that has worked 20 years ago. He's always thinking, this is what we need to do in the future before we get left behind. So it's cutting the rising star, basically, the young talent that has come up through the different levels, and you get a brief chance.
Somebody who was totally loyal. I did almost everything that they asked me to do, including leaving my vacation early and paying extra money to get on a different flight. And then that happened, and then they put me in a different store and whatever.
So was it at that moment where you were just like, was that kind of the tipping point where it's like, I got to do something else, where I don't have as much control as I thought or wanted or envisioned?
It was definitely that. That was definitely the beginning of the end. The second part of it was I gave them a chance to make it right. So I hung in there for a while. Mm-hmm. I stayed in through a very busy fourth quarter. Was probably a little bit unhappy. Very, very unhappy.
Understatement.
My employees may or may not have seen that. But in the spring, they tried to make it up to me by, and this just makes me shake my head every time, they offered me a high-volume store in Montgomeryville, which, if you guys don't know central Pennsylvania, it's kind of towards Philadelphia, further east. It's probably an hour to an hour and a half east of here. It's a suburb of Philly, very affluent area, so no question it's a high-volume store. There's some status that goes along with managing a high-volume store. Salary's a little bit higher, things like that. And then I was like, okay, can I make that commute, right? Because at this point we have probably 4 kids. Can I make that commute? I don't know, that's a little long. Do I want to move? These are all the thoughts that are going through my head. And I have this conversation with them, and the guy that was in charge at that point says, well, we'll get you an apartment in Montgomeryville and you can come home on the weekends. And I was like, what? Did you say that out loud right now? Like, you don't understand who I am. Like, I'm a family man first and foremost. I mean, I have very good perspective of why I'm doing this.
Yes.
I didn't always have a very good perspective. I did mention I was very ambitious and hardworking. Some of that was to the detriment of my family, but I've grown out of that. So just the fact that he mentioned that to me, I was like, okay, these people, this company has no interest in my well-being as a whole person. Mm-hmm. Right? This is all about, and if I give into this demand, and if I give into this, not demand, this offer, this golden opportunity. Oh, it's such a nice store. It's one of our flagship stores. And listen, don't BS me, okay? Don't BS me. You can't sell the salesperson, right?
But it had to be tempting, right? I mean, it's hard to turn down, and maybe thinking not so much from your own perspective, but maybe as just in a general perspective, right? We like comfort, we like safety, right?
Sure.
Someone promises you, hey, great store, salary, blah blah blah. It's like, ooh, safety zone. Like, it's kind of, isn't it? Was it tempting at all to stay in there and just take the safe route?
For sure. The ambitious side of me said, well, that could be the stepping stone to to getting back to where I was and back on the same level. But really, logistically, that just wasn't going to work for me and my family. And I thought it was pretty disingenuous of them to even offer that to me. So I declined that.
And those are values. I mean, core values above money.
Right.
And I've had conversations in the past with people where it's like, both of us are very motivated by money. We make no lie that we like money.
Right.
But we do have values, and it's like there are things that are more important than money.
Absolutely.
Time, values,
100%.
Doing things the right way. And I think
100%.
that is something for a lot of people that need to understand. There's nothing wrong with liking money.
100%.
I'm a true believer that money causes happiness, right? The more money you have, the more kind of stresses you can handle.
I heard this conversation on one of your podcasts that you were having.
Yep.
Money can buy happiness to a certain level.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Once you get beyond that level, it's like the law of diminishing returns. Mm-hmm. It makes it worse.
Big words. I like the big words.
Yeah, sorry. Was it Diddy or was it More Money, More Problems?
Oh, yep. There
Somebody.
you go. Mm-hmm.
I should probably know this.
It was Diddy. Huh?
I'm aging myself a little bit. Who was that? Who was that young man?
They had shiny suits and they were dancing. Yes.
I do remember the video from college, back when MTV actually played videos. So anyway, all of that stuff went down, and I realized I had no control over how much money I was going to make. Right, very little control outside of my own performance, which I clearly still didn't have the desired effect in some cases, and my employment status, all that stuff. So it was at that point that I was like, I got to do something else. I have to. I can't continue down this road thinking that this is eventually going to work out. And I also saw my bosses, right? How old were they, and how long have they been in their position? So I got one step up, and I'm stuck for 30 years.
Yep, until they...
So am I really chasing what I want to chase? Maybe not. So that was definitely the point where I was like...
Forward thinking.
I'm out. Like, I got to be out.
Forward thinking. I shared the same conversation about my leap was a little bit different than yours because, I won't say fortunately, but I did mine at the time where I didn't have a family. So it's a lot easier for me to kind of take risk like that when, there's no one that is, you don't have to help anyone except for yourself. But it was kind of the same vision where it's like, hey, I'm making $30,000 coming out of college. I'm not single, but not married, living with 3 roommates. $30,000 goes a long way.
Yeah.
And then you start thinking like, okay, in the future, when you start a family, 10, 20 years from now, what does that really get you?
Here's the thing. There was a lot of exterior pressure on me because I had a family that I had to provide.
See, that's tough,
so
man.
as I became ambitious. I wasn't always ambitious. Prior to college, I mean, if you ever would, I mean, you know me, but for the people that know me, I'm a very laid back, very even-keeled, like a duck on a pond. Like maybe internally, it's going crazy, but on top, on the surface, everything is cool and calm and collected. That's me. I'm not super excitable. I don't even remember where I was going with that.
Just thinking about being kind of more ambitious once.
Oh
once
yeah,
you had
prior to college,
stake,
yeah. But there was definitely exterior pressure to be ambitious and to move forward at that point. And I don't know. I think there was definitely a part of me that just had the innate entrepreneurial mindset. That mindset of this is mine and I'm going to make it something. I think that at the core is the entrepreneurial mindset. I'm going to build something for myself, even though I was doing it for another company.
Yeah.
And then all that stuff went down, and I was like, I've got this mindset. I'm actually going to go do it for myself.
Now, was there a turning point when you actually, was there something that made you, like, day where you made the decision? Because that's the hardest part of, like...
The day I made the decision was when I turned down that position in Montgomery.
And you knew right then and there,
I was like...
I'm done.
Yep. I remember
Did you know what you were going to do?
Nope. I had no idea. I remember being very anxious, and I had a lot of emotions around that decision. Because I remember thinking, after I hung up the phone, I just committed career suicide.
Yep.
It's over, right? Not only are they not going to look at me anymore, but I want out. And so I was like looking for the next move. I'm talking to my wife like, what the hell are we going to do?
You had no plans, right? No plans. I mean, obviously, aside from saying I'm not doing it, but there was no job lined up. There was
nothing waiting for me. Zero plans. But I've been blessed with a wife who's super supportive and believes in me 100%. And it's a little bit frustrating because every time we have these conversations about, okay, what are we going to do? She goes, babe, you're going to do great. you're going to do awesome. And I'm like, appreciate the vote of confidence. But sometimes I want somebody to say, you should go do this.
Now, how important, and my wife is the same way, kind of blindly supportive. Yeah. Even if they truly don't believe it, kind of cheerleader. Yeah, you got this. Yeah. How important do you think that is? Because a lot of our followers, obviously there are a lot of entrepreneurs listen to this, a lot of traders as well. And the traders are really in the same kind of boat as you. They're trying to learn a skill that could provide them with control over their lives. And it's a decision that I would say 99.9% of people wouldn't do, right? Turn down a sure deal for an idea, a possibility. Yeah. How important is having that support of your wife or of your significant other keeping you...
I'll take it even further. Mm-hmm. I mean, there might be some people who aren't married or don't have a significant other, but you have to surround yourself with positive people. We're both fortunate that our wives support us 100%. If our wives did not, and we have another mutual friend who does not have that support from his significant other.
Oh, good point. Very good point. And he hasn't made the leap.
He has not made the leap, and he won't.
Yep, and he wants to. But
it's negative exterior pressure, which is taking him backwards. So if he wants to move forward, he's going to have to make changes. And nobody's asking him to do that. Whatever. I get it. You're in love. Blah blah blah. Whatever. It's great, but just realize that's the reality. Now, your traders out there, your people listening to this podcast, might not have a significant other, or may not be married, but maybe you're young and you've got parents who are negative, right? So what if your parents are mad at you for a couple of years? Right? You got to make a decision. At some point, you have to make a decision that you're going to make it work. Another thing about being an entrepreneur, if you guys want to be entrepreneurs, is you have to commit. If you're going to dabble in trading or whatever it is you decide to do, it's not going to work. Period. I can tell you right now, it's not going to work. I'm mentoring and training new agents now, and they're talking about how do I generate business? How do I get in touch with people? And guess what? One of the first things I tell them that's going to happen, you get licensed, right? Now it's public information. Everybody knows you're an agent now because you have a license number. Yep. Every company, every marketing strategy company in the world is going to start contacting you. And you're going to start hearing from other agents because you're going to ask questions. Well, I did this and I did that and this strategy works and buy this program and it's free for 3 months and that worked for them. And then there's all these ideas and then they get paralysis by analysis.
Oh, a listener.
And it's like, dude, this is what I tell them. Pick 1, 2 things, tops, strategies. And I just heard this on your podcast the other day in terms of trading strategies. Pick 1 and do it. Here's life. Here is the secret sauce, the golden nugget, the silver bullet that I'm going to give everybody right now. All of the strategies work. They all work. Pick 1 and do it. Commit to it. Perseverance over time is what's going to make you successful. I love your T-shirt that says something like overnight success, 10 years in the making, or something like that.
That's same thing as you with the duck on the pond.
Right.
Looks like just coasting along, but underneath, legs are pedaling. But let's take it back real quick. You got into a little bit about what you're doing now, and I do want to touch on that because you are a teacher as well, and you're aggressively growing your career in the real estate business.
Try to. That's the idea.
Aggressively. Yeah. But just going back to, what did you do? So after that day you called him, you said, I'm done. You didn't know what to do, but your wife said, you'll be all right. And you're like, well, I really? What was the next step? Like, what was the first thing you did? Do you start looking for part-time jobs? Do you start putting out resumes? Do you kind of have an idea of what you wanted to do?
Yeah. It was around that time that you and I had a conversation. I think there was probably 10 other guys we had talked to at that point.
And that's if I pause you for a minute, it's a good point. I remember, I don't know why this happened. I do know why it happened. I had a property that I owned. I was leased to purchase in the city, and I remember we had a big group call. It was like 10 of us. Where it's like, hey, we should all, we all do this. Let's all get together, put some money in, and start a real estate business, right? A lot of you guys have been scammed doing something similar. Yeah. But what's funny is because there were about 10 people on that call, and it's really only 2 of us that have followed through. 2.5.
Right.
2.5 that have followed through.
Our original group was 4 guys.
Yeah.
Our original group was 4. The one guy dropped off pretty quickly. We kind of terminated him.
We had some issues going on.
Because he really didn't do anything. He certainly didn't do anything he said he was going to do. And yeah, we still got a guy that's involved, but basically, you know,
and that's
you and I are the decision makers in that whole thing.
We'll put it. Look, I'm not a good business owner, right? And I've told John this because we've had plenty of conversation in the past. The guy we're talking about has, we think, a massive amount of upside in many different ways that can help the business, but is just not going through with it. And I know one of my flaws is, you know, I don't like working with friends because sometimes it ends bad. You got to make the rough decisions. I'm not good at that at all. And that's something I recognize about myself. I'm not good at taking one of my best friends. These guys were both in my wedding and saying, hey, dude, you're out. I am not that ruthless. I'm ruthless with people I don't know. If I don't know you, I don't really care. You'll be cut in a minute. But for people that I try to see the best in people I know, because it's more than money. We're trying to grow stuff I know to support ourselves, support our family, and something that we can really kind of pass on as far as generational wealth. Something that when we're old and done and traveling the world, that our kids, if they choose, can have a business that they can step right into and continue. But yeah, 10 people going down to
so we had that conversation around that time, around that same area. You know, things happen for a reason, so I don't know if that just put that idea in my head, planted the seed. But we had a couple years prior to that purchased a home. Been through the real estate experience, and I remember thinking to myself, well, you know, that was a really good experience. The agent I worked with at the time did a great job. She was very professional. She still sends me stuff to this day, and I'm like, dude, you know, like I'm in the business.
You know who I am?
Yeah, you know who I am. But it's so that added with the conversation we were having about starting a company together, I think was the stimulus I needed to say, okay, I'm going to get into real estate. But there was still a transition period there because if you people don't know, you know, I could have a whole conversation about the future of real estate, but
which we will have in a future episode.
But about 95% of all real estate agents get paid on a commission-only basis, and that was true for me as well. So I did have a substantial savings at that time. But with a family as large as I have, savings don't last very long. But so anyway, there was kind of some odd jobs I did kind of in a transition period of about 6 months or so, leaving my job, you know, handing in my resignation, sending in that email, and going into real estate full time.
See, and you mentioned my shirt the other day, Overnight Success Years in the Mention, I think, or years in the making. That's what a lot of people don't understand. We talked earlier about everyone wanting the label of entrepreneurship. I'm an entrepreneur. I own this business. They want the end result. We had a conversation about some of our kids and kind of the same thing. I want to be here. This is what I want to be.
Right.
And you see yourself now, and you're successful. Not as successful as you want to be. I don't think you will ever be as successful as you want to be. That's just our mindset. But we can say that you've had a successful journey. But what people don't recognize is, like I said, the year to get to where you are now.
Here's a quick stat for
you. It was doing those odd jobs and doing stuff that was, you know, some would say is like embarrassing. Like, wow, you came from owning a store, not owning a store, but basically managing and having your own store to
own area.
Yeah, own
multiple
area.
Stores.
Yeah, multiple stores to, you know, working at a retail place, working behind the desk, doing like
menial jobs.
Yeah,
yeah, cleaning furniture, literally.
Was there a slight embarrassment in there, or was it more the mindset like, hey, I'm just doing what I have to do? Like, it's
my
survival.
mindset wasn't, this is my job. That wasn't my job. I just was doing what I had to do to provide a little money, right? Because money is a thing. It's important, especially when you got kids at home.
Yeah.
Now, like we were saying earlier, some of you guys might be listening, and it's just you, and you don't have a ton of expenses. You have a huge advantage, and some of you are saying, oh, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. If you're 20 or 25, you can pick anything. Screw it up for 2 years, pick something else.
Yep.
Screw it up for 2 more years, pick something else. Screw it up for 2 more years, you're still only 30.
Plenty of time.
You're still 10 years younger than I am,
Plenty
basically.
of time.
Dear God, do something. So anyway, I don't know where I was going with that.
Real quick, we have this conversation a lot about, you know, obviously to be a successful trader, you need to make any significant amount of income from trading. You need to have money. Now, I always advise the people. A lot of traders are coming from positions where they don't have, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars. right? Maybe they're enough $5,000, $10,000. You look at realistic results, and it's like, man, like I'm not really going to produce. If you can make 30% a year, you're amazing. And you look at $5,000 or $10,000, like 30% off of that, I'm not really changing my life.
Right.
And an excuse that many people make is, well, I just don't have the money. I can't make. I don't have the money to fund an account. The money is the easy part.
I agree.
You can McDonald's, Walmart is
the
always
thing.
hiring.
Here's the thing.
Just do it.
Your most precious commodity, and I was just having this conversation in a meeting yesterday. Your most precious commodity is your time. Mm-hmm. Money comes and goes. There's a million different ways to make money. So I just said money comes and goes. Time only goes.
Yep.
Time doesn't come. Time only goes. It only passes. It only goes forward. You can make a lot of money. You can spend a lot of money. Okay. You could go work at McDonald's. You could go stock shelves. You could go work overnight somewhere. Maybe you don't want to do it. That's a different question. You got to start soul searching a little bit, maybe. Right. Going back to, cleaning furniture and doing what I had to do. I was just doing what I had to do. Right. But it wasn't my job. I didn't care. I don't have a big ego, so I wasn't like, oh, I hope nobody sees me here. I really didn't care.
See, I think I like how you labeled it, how you talk about that's not my job.
Right.
This is a platform. This is just a means.
Right.
And I think the ego is what gets in the way of a lot of people. Say, hey, get a job at McDonald's. I don't want to be seen. I don't want my friends to see me.
Oh, and they even, I got to tell you, they even tried to rope me in. Like, would you be interested in managing one? I was like, no, I wouldn't be interested in managing one store. I'm here to do this thing.
Once again, turning down the short thing, the safety,
right,
for investing in yourself for the bigger goal. Yeah, that's the mindset.
Yep.
That is the difference in mindset of people that are going to be successful and people that aren't. And I truly believe that people. If you have that successful mindset and you're willing to work on it, you're going to be successful. Right. It's just a matter of time, a matter of what. And like you said, you may fail at 15 different things, but you may find that one thing. It's like, boom, it worked out. But if you don't have the mindset, it's just not. If you don't have the mindset and willing to act on it, it's not going to happen.
Right.
Unless you change it.
Yep.
So you're working these jobs, and I guess let's kind of fast forward. I know you're running out of time a little bit. Explain to where have you gotten to now? Where are you at now?
Where am I at now?
And where do you want to go in the future? What's the next step?
Yeah, that's probably one I may not have an answer to, but where I'm at now. So I'll back it up a little bit for you. So I started. I joined when I first got into the business. I joined a team. I actually joined a team of agents who were working together, and I think that was a really good thing. It was a good setup for me. Because I had a built-in group of people that I could go to with, questions, and a lot of agents get into the business, they don't know what to do, and they don't know how things work, and it's a serious business. I talked about how working in retail and doing suits wasn't a very quote-unquote important job. It wasn't super significant. I wasn't changing lives. Not that I'm changing lives in real estate, but there's a lot of legal implications, tax implications that go into what I do now. So there's there's a different focus, a different seriousness about the job. So it was a benefit to me to join a team, and I learned a lot through that. The team leader I had was very generous with me, and she was very knowledgeable. She'd been in the business a while and was willing to share what she did. And guess what? I started to do some of the things she told me to do because I saw that she was successful, and they started to work for me because I chose one thing to focus on. And, it snowballs from there like a lot of things do when you're an entrepreneur. And I don't know if your traders are looking to just trade your own money or work with clients, but clients lead to other clients, lead to other clients, lead to other clients, and that's how you build a business, at least in this industry, and probably similarly in yours.
Same thing. I remember my first, when I was managing money, and I hated it, but that's how I started growing my trading business. And I did a podcast. I got to shamelessly promote my show, right? Go back and watch all 74 episodes before this or whatever we're on. But I did one that said it only takes one yes. And I remember kind of going door by door, cold calling people, telling them my position. Hey, I have this opportunity to offer you and manage money, blah, blah, blah. The whole spiel of trying to get people to give you a shot. And for most of the time it was click, hang up, no, not interested, whatever excuse you can hear. And I'm sure you've heard all of them. But then I got one yes. And all it takes is that one yes. And I remember the one thing this client told me. He said, hey, and most of the high kind of, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. I told you I'm bad one for is the clients that have a lot of money to spend. They run in those circles. They typically say, "Hey, if you do good by me,
yeah,
I've got five other friends."
You found the gatekeeper. Yeah,
and it's like you take advantage of that. You work so hard.
Absolutely.
For that one opportunity, and then you don't mess it up, right? You train so hard, you get your first opportunity to play, put on the jersey, Real Madrid, you get to step on the pitch.
Yeah.
Don't mess it up.
Yeah. Just don't do anything stupid.
Yeah, don't do anything stupid. And you do good and it leads to other opportunities. And in soccer, hey, maybe you get a big old transfer fee the next season because someone saw you.
Yep.
In our business, hey, you find other clients and you build and you build and you build.
That's
and it's you work so hard and doesn't seem like you get that initial, that instant gratification everyone wants.
Yep.
But it takes one. It just takes one. And it opens so many doors.
Yep. So I went from being an individual agent. I changed companies, learned a lot at that other company, got into coaching other agents, developed a training program for agents while I was there while still being an agent, and went through the process of opening my own real estate school. State of Pennsylvania requires...
And you're not an entrepreneur, you say.
a certain amount of hours of education before they can get licensed as a real estate agent in this state. So I went through the process of opening up that school, did that, and again have changed companies, and now I'm in a leadership position where I'm running an office of agents and recruiting, retention, training, and still working with clients. So
there we go. Well, look, I'm
keeping busy.
I know you're on limited time here, and John was nice enough to come in and give us a great podcast. I'm going to hold you to that question next time we talk to you about what's the future. 'Cause I know you're always thinking of what's
always
next.
reading.
But I want to do this. I do want to have John back on again. We talked a little bit about his entrepreneurial story today. I want to do a little bit more about real estate specific questions. So for you guys that are listening to this, shoot me a message on social media. Shoot me a message or a comment under the YouTube version of this. If you have a question that you want John to answer, it could be anything in the world. Anything. Maybe that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
We'll filter through them. But what I'll do is I'll look at those questions. I'll put them together. And then next time we have John on, we'll discuss some of those. Anything you want to plug shamelessly before we head out? I know you're active on social media, but not really
I'm
active.
not super active on social media, not to the level that you are.
It really takes a team these days, man, to be honest with you.
It does. If I'm going to plug anything, I'm going to plug you.
Yeah.
I just want to let everybody out there know Akil is the real deal as a person. He's genuine, authentic. What you see is what you get. He's not blowing smoke up your ass. It's not fluff. This is the real deal. So listen to what he's got to say. The mindset stuff is great. I'm a listener myself, and I get a lot out of it. So appreciate the time on the mic.
No problem.